Good morning. I want to welcome you, everybody. It's okay. We're all anxious. That's good. To the first annual MLK breakfast. I want to say thank you to the Black Scholars for putting this on and working so diligently in combination with La Comunidad. And that's two of our student equity programs. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want to definitely give a round of applause for those students. At this time, because it's a Unity Through Faith breakfast, we are going to ask Gregory Sanders, pastor of the Rock Church, to come up and say a blessing.
Do you think? All right. Thank you very, very much. Before I do, I always like to ask everyone if you would please stand. And let me tell you why. It's because I need to do a 30-second pregnancy test. Literally. I believe in immaculate conception, and I want to know that I'm in a room with people, and everyone in here, male and female, you're pregnant. And I mean, Dr. King's vision was that everyone be pregnant with a dream, be pregnant with a purpose, be pregnant with your goal, and you're going to deliver something so awesome so soon, but you got to first believe in this immaculate conception that we have the ability to be impregnated with a great gift of purpose. And so I just want you to touch your belly and say, you know, I feel pregnant. You didn't do it, brother. Come on, it's okay, it's okay. And then I want you to look at somebody next to you and tell them, you look good pregnant. Just tell them, you look good pregnant. I know it's kind of weird for guys, but we want to be pregnant with purpose, okay? Now that we're all pregnant together, would you grab the person's hand that's next to you and close to you as just a sign of unity and an opportunity to connect? Don't they feel good pregnant? That's pretty cool to be in a room full of pregnant people. What's being birthed at this college? What's being birthed in this community? What's being birthed through your leaders? It is a powerful place to be, and that is with something unique. Let's pray. God, we're so grateful for this morning. We thank you for the vision. We thank you for the visionaries. We bless you that we're celebrating a monumental time of our year that is not just a calendar date, but it's historical. God, we thank you that we are all here as advocates of peace and tolerance and love and joy, all pregnant with great purpose and dreams. So let this day not only be a blessing, but let it be a realization of the greatness that you've given us all through this immaculate conception. We thank you and we love you. In God's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Well, that's a perfect way to get us started. I know for myself, I've been pregnant for a long time, and I'm about ready to have this baby anytime. Thank you, Gregory. I appreciate that. It was a blessing. At this particular time, I want to recognize a very special guest that we have, and we're very appreciative of having this person in the house. Our board president, Tony Tartaglia, and I think possibly he might want to come up and say some words to you.
We'll be quick, I promise. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Let's see, pregnant. Well, Pastor, I think I got a lot of morning sickness right now, but I'm going to get through it. Thank you so much. I'm Tony Tartaglia, the president of the Board of Trustees, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the board to this first MLK Unity Breakfast, and I hope not the last. You know, Martin Luther King gave his all for us to think about working together and being one. And I'm so happy that we're thinking along those lines, and especially the Black Scholars Program. I really was excited when Robin Williams came to speak to us about this, Because what I particularly like about this program is not only is it a program that helps our African American students succeed and continue to succeed, but it encourages community involvement. Involvement in your community. I want you all as young people to look around and see the organizations in your community and see how the people involved in it are aging. The people that are giving back to the community are getting old and retiring and disappearing, and we need you. We need you to keep it up and be part of this community. So please consider being part of your community, because when you're part of the community, people are not afraid that you're different. They will learn who you are, and you will learn who they are. So again, on behalf of the board, thank you so much. And I'd like to invite Dr. Vire up to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tartaglia. Well, we all know Glendale Community College is a higher education institution. Higher education, a place of learning, a place where all of us, students, faculty, and staff, are joined as a learning community, engaged in thoughtful discussion and efforts to help each other grow as intelligent, caring human beings focused on building a more just and peaceful world. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Intelligence plus character, the goal of true education." Today, we pause to reflect on an amazing educator, Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose words and actions brought people to ask questions, difficult questions, and to struggle with the answers as to how to address the questions that were being raised and the challenges that we face in society. And ultimately, in answering those questions, to become better human beings. As he said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? What are you doing for others? But as part of Glendale Community College's learning community, we must remember that the actions and words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. must guide us every day. As educators and lifelong learners, students, faculty, staff, we must always be trying to be better human beings, providing community leadership and building critical consciousness. That's what our Black Scholars Program is about, but I hope that's what we're about across the whole of Glendale Community College. The time is always right to do what is right, Dr. King said. Don't forget that. The time is always right to do what is right. So as we reflect today on peace, faith, community, and love, as we remember and honor a great person, let's stay focused on carrying out Dr. King's messages, not just on one day, not just on a week, not just a month of honoring and remembrance, but for our lifetime, for our institution, our community, and our world's lifetime. We cannot forget Dr. King's words that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. It's a pleasure to have all of you with us today on what I know will become an annual tradition, but also all of you carrying what we learned today and we share with each other across every day of our life at Glendale Community College and in this world. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, President Vire. I appreciate those words. It's always nice to have your staff and the administration and everybody that helped put this part on to be a part of this program, and we appreciate you being a part of it. We appreciate you saying some words about that because it brings all of us together. The whole point of this is to demonstrate we may have different beliefs, we may have different faiths across the board, but we can find common ground in what we do in this message. And this, we hopefully are trying to inspire and inform, just treating people a little bit better. We go from here today, hopefully we are treating people better, no matter what our faith is. So I want to bring up one of our wonderful students, international students. He is going to introduce our next person of faith. That's Mr. Akram Abdul Rahman. So come on.
Thank you on behalf of the Black Scholars Program. I'm Akram Abdul Rahman. Like Mr. Dr. Hill said, he did get my last name right, which I appreciate. I'm the Vice President of the Black Scholars Program. I'm also a cabinet member of the ISA, which is the International Student Association. I just want to say, before presenting the local imam, that it's a blessing to be here at Glendale Community College, seeing all these differences of human nature, all the cultures that we have here. In Sweden, for instance, I didn't experience this strengthening of culture. And like Dr. Hill said many times, that the thing that strengthens us and unifies us is the humanity. So I would like to present the local imam, one of the local imams here of the community, Brother J.D. Hall, and he's going to give the Islam's representative.
First, I'm going to give you a little Arabic lesson. I'm going to say to you, Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be upon you. And the proper response from you is wa alaikum salam. Okay, here we go. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. Boy, the level of intelligence in this room is staggering. I'm from the theater, so I'm not going to hold the microphone, but I'm going to use some notes because that's how we speak in the theater, through other people's writings. These are my writings, by the way. Tomorrow is MLK's birthday, the 15th of January. And Monday, the 18th, is the actual holiday that is in his honor. Martin Luther King is only one of 3 people who have a federal holiday associated with their name. The other 2 are Washington and Columbus. Washington's birthday has been changed to President's Day, so now we're down to 2. So he's one of 2 people who have a federal holiday associated with his name. So we can see from this that this is a very high and a very rare honor. And it shows that America has come to grips with redressing its treatment of its former slaves and their descendants. But for me, it's not just about Martin Luther King. In my mind, Martin Luther King is an icon. And when I say that, I mean it in the sense of the word that an icon is a symbol, a representation of a much larger process. All of the Generation X and computer people know you have icons on your computer that stand for larger processes that take place when you click on it. So for me, he's an icon. And he represents that much larger process where he stands in lieu of hundreds of thousands of black men and women and people, men and women of other colors who have struggled and strived to bring this ground, this foundation for Martin Luther King and for his holiday. People who have names who are almost as famous as Martin Luther King, people like Malcolm X, Jesse Jackson, Muhammad Ali, Abraham Lincoln, Rosa Parks. And then there are other names who are only known to those people who have some historical background. And these are names like Paul Robeson, H. Rap Brown, Huey P. Newton, Stokely Carmichael, John Brown, Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd Garrison, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Booker T. Washington, to name a few. And there are yet other people whose names are buried so deep in the annals of history that you have to dig them up like an archaeologist digs up fossils. And these are names of people like Isaac and Maria van der Wagen, who protected Sojourner Truth and her daughter when they escaped. These are white people that did this. People like Charles DeLandis, who led the largest slave revolt in this country. David Walker, Samuel Sharp, James Reed, Clark Olson, Orloff Miller, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, Michael Schwerner, Claudette Colvin. And there are hundreds of thousands of other people whose names will not be known because they were in the struggle, but they didn't get the recognition of being in the struggle on a national scale, but whose contribution makes it possible for Dr. King to do what he did and make possible for a holiday like Martin Luther King Day. They all struggle for the same thing that Dr. King struggled for, and that is full personhood, equal protection under the law, equal rights, and perhaps the most difficult right to secure, and that is the right of equal opportunity. And as I said earlier, the nation has made great strides towards these goals, and I testify from my own experience. You heard me say I'm from the theater, I'm an actor by profession. And in the mid-90s, I was doing a movie in Birmingham, Alabama. And walking around Birmingham, I'd never been there before, exploring downtown Birmingham, I noticed that it was time for midday prayers. So I had my prayer rug in my bag, and I took it out, and I walked to a nearby park, and I made the call to pray, and I spread out my prayer rug, and I started to pray. And about midway through the prayer, it hit me where I was. I said, boy, here I am, a Muslim, dressed pretty much like I am today, standing in the middle of Birmingham, praying, and I'm not afraid. This is the city that 32 years ago, 4 little girls, 14 through 11, were killed in a bombing that was sent by the Ku Klux Klan under the 16th Street Baptist Church. 32 years from that point in time that I was praying in the park in Birmingham. I said to myself, yes, something has changed. But even though there's been great changes, the battle still rages on. One only has to look at the Black Lives Matter movement and the events that brought it into being to know that oppression and injustice and insensitivity are still alive and well, and that the enemies of justice and peace will never surrender. For as long as there is born into this world people who use their God-given right to disobey God, then there will always be evil, conflict, oppression, and injustice. In the broad sense of the word, Dr. King and those who followed him, the names I mentioned, they are jihadis. Now, I know that's a scary word for a lot of people, but the word jihad means struggle in Arabic. And they were jihadis. They were jihadis for justice, for peace, for the end of oppression, and for good. So those people who may think that I'm being a little over the board to use this word with the names of Dr. King and so forth, let me just share with you briefly a portion of a letter that was written to the Muslims of North Africa during World War II by a high U.S. official. The letter starts off, "Praise be to the only God. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, O ye Muslims, O ye beloved sons of the Maghreb, may the blessings of God be upon you. This is a great day for you and for us, for all the sons of Adam who love freedom. Our numbers are as the leaves of the forest and as the grains of the sand in the sea. Behold, we, the American holy warriors, have arrived. We have come here to fight the great jihad of freedom. We have come to set you free. We have sailed across the great sea in many ships on many beaches, and we are landing, and our fighters swarm across the sands into the cities and streets, into the wide countryside. This is a letter written by the only four-term president in the history of America, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to the Muslims of North Africa, seeking their help in World War II. So if he can say that the American soldiers are jihadis, making jihad, I think that we can say that anyone who strives and struggles for good is a jihadi. And that we should all be jihadis. For me, that's what the day of Martin Luther King is about, and that's what every day should be about. We should all be struggling for good. We should all be struggling for justice. We should all be struggling to end oppression, and we should all be struggling against evil. With that said, may God make us successful in our efforts. Thank you, and assalamu alaikum.
So there's a slight change in the program. I'm Robert Williams. I'm the coordinator of the Black Scholars Program. Thank you all for coming. This is unbelievable. I was hoping for more than 10 people. I promise you, I was. I said that out loud this morning, and we have over 100 easy. So thank you so very much. I just have a few words. I want to introduce our keynote speaker. And I guess I want to say that we all have a dream, right? Some of us dream of a $1.5 billion lottery winning, right? None of us got it, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Others dream of family. Before the age of 40, Dr. Martin Luther King dreamt that one day all men and women would be treated as equals. The woman I'm going to introduce also had a dream. Her dream was to liberate the minds and hearts of the young minds through education. Her work began in the early 90s, when most of today's students at GCC were just beginning their educational journey. She believed that education was the key to overcoming the oppressive conditions that many of her students lived under. Our esteemed guest, armed with determination and passion, set off to change the world one student at a time. 4 years and 150 students later, her story became national news when all of her quote-unquote at-risk students graduated from high school. These students were termed freedom riders. For our keynote speaker believed that through the written word or journaling, that her students would be able to deal with their past and move forward more fluidly. Today, her story and influence has changed more than the lives of her students. She has changed how we approach students, how we teach them, and also how we dream. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Erin Grunwald.
Before I begin, I want to pay homage to a fellow dreamer, and that is my dear friend, Dr. Hill. I know him as Big Daddy, and I want to tell you why I know him as Big Daddy. Many of the students in this room did not go through what many of the adults in this room went through, which was the Los Angeles riots. And as we turn our television the last few years and watch Ferguson and Baltimore and Chicago and places where there's civil unrest, the common theme is I want to be heard, I want to be seen, and I want to matter. And for those of us that went through the Los Angeles riots, it was my students at the age of 12 years old who were so angry because they felt invisible. They didn't feel seen. No one listened. No one paid attention. And so they were the ones out in the streets with that Molotov cocktail, throwing it at that building. They were the ones who were looting. And most of my students, by the time they were 14 years old, but before they walked into my classroom, had already spent time behind bars. So at the age of 14, in ninth grade, they walked into this classroom, not thinking that education was the answer, not thinking that education was going to liberate them, and not daring to dream. So I walked into this classroom and saw 150 students. I was wearing polka dots, I wore pearls, and my students looked at me and thought, how can we make this woman go back to Newport Beach where she came from? They were miserable, and they wanted to make me as miserable as they were. And they did a really good job. And I stood in front of my students with this syllabus of stories, of storytellers, whether it was Shakespeare and I Am a Pentameter and those sonnets, or Homer and that Tale of an Odyssey. And I'll never forget, I passed out my syllabus on that very first day, got to the very back row to Darius Garrett. He took one look at it, folded it into a perfect airplane, threw it right back at me and asked, why do we have to read books written by dead white guys in tights? Which is a very profound question. In Darius's mind, Homer wasn't going to leap out the pages of that book and put food on that table for that hardworking mom. And Shakespeare wasn't going to help him get from point A to point B. Because at the age of 14, Darius, like 149 other students, cared about survival, cared about that next meal, cared about making it home to see that hardworking mom who may have had 2 or 3 jobs. And all she wanted to do was to keep that roof over their head and a little food in that fridge. So they would rub those feet for those calluses and blisters. They would shoo away those rats and those roaches and try to live another day. So at the age of 14 in ninth grade, my students didn't care about a number 2 pencil or a Scantron or a standardized test. They didn't have aspirations of higher education. They wanted to live another day. They didn't want to be pregnant by the time they turned 15, like a mom. They didn't want to be behind bars by the time they were 16, like a brother. And for my students, they didn't want to be 6 feet under by the time they turned 18, like a friend, a father, a community member. Because that summer before I began teaching, 126 people were put to rest in Long Beach. So most of my students walked through the streets feeling like they had a bullseye on their chest, feeling that at any moment, I too am going to be that statistic. I too could be behind bars or racially profiled or, God forbid, 6 feet under. And that is where our story started, with that syllabus coming back at me, with those names. I got called a lot of naughty names. I eventually made a cheat sheet and laminated it, so I knew I was being called at every moment of every day. Very colorful names. But I realized if I'm going to teach stories as an English teacher, what I have to do is validate that each and every one of my students, 150 strong, they have a story. And how can I give them a voice? How can I convince them to put down their fist, put down that spray can, put down that gun, and pick up a pen? And maybe, just maybe, write a different ending to a different story. Maybe, just maybe, dare to dream that things can get better, that they can break that cycle. So it wasn't easy, and it wasn't automatic, and there wasn't pixie dust. It was an ordinary teacher who had extraordinary students. One of the first things I did was play a game that was anything but. And that game came from an idea that I wanted my students to stand up for something that was bigger than themselves. And the idea came to me when I was in college, thinking I was going to be a lawyer. God forbid, I hope there's no lawyers in the room. But I went off to college thinking that I was going to be a lawyer. And then I turned on my television, I saw this kid, a college-age kid, in the middle of Tiananmen Square, China, standing in front of a tank. And as that tank got closer and closer, so did he. He stood strategically right in front of that tank. And as I watched spellbound, I thought, what is he standing up for? Is it democracy or education or the right to even just go to school? But I realized it was so much bigger than him. And I realized at that moment, I had never stood up to anyone or for anything. I went to the right schools, I played the right sports, I joined the right clubs. And I thought if I go into a courtroom and stand in front of a judge and jury, maybe it's too late. So it was at that moment I decided I wanted to stand in a classroom. in front of students before it was too late. So I wanted my students to stand up for something, and what I was going to do was simply ask them questions. And maybe, just maybe, those questions would be this gravitational pull. So I took out all the chairs, took out all the desks, put a piece of tape down the center of my classroom, and then I was going to ask questions. And I realized my competition was pop culture. The songs, the icons, the hip-hop artists, the movies, those Marvel characters who leap out of a screen, those games that are in 3D. So I realized if I'm going to get my kids to play this game, those first few questions have to be about what they know. And it's not about that class assignment. It's not about that test score. So the first question was easy. It was about this skinny, scrawny kid named Calvin Broadus. You all know him as Snoop Dogg. But he was born and raised and singing about the LBC. And it was almost like Elvis sightings. Each and every one of my students pretended that they hung out with him at VIP Records or MLK Park. So my first question was, stand on the line if you have the new Snoop Dogg CD. And they rolled their eyes and thought, this woman is crazy with her polka dots and pearls. She probably doesn't know any of the lyrics, which I didn't. But I knew they would come anyways. So they came to that line, they kind of looked around and thought, well, at least we're not taking a test. At least we're not sitting at a desk. At least we don't have that number 2 pencil in our hand. And the questions continued. I knew if I asked about this movie or this icon or this artist, they'd come. Stand in line if you've seen Boys in the Hood. And once again, they rolled their eyes and they came anyway. Question after question. And then the questions got real. Stand on the line if you know someone who is poor. And 150 kids stood on that line. And that someone was them. Because each and every one of my students knew what it felt like in the pit of their stomach to be hungry. To look in the refrigerator and there's nothing there but a bar of butter. To go to those cupboards and it's top ramen again. To turn on those lights and the electricity's been turned off again. To not be able to take that hot shower or have clean clothes because the gas has been turned off again. To want things. To wish for things. To dread a birthday or a Christmas. Because when you ask that hardworking mom for these video games or these designer jeans or those shoes that those basketball stars wear, what is that hardworking mom going to have to sacrifice? What is she going to have to go without for those jeans, for that game, for those shoes? So in that moment, when each and every kid looked at each other, different shapes and sizes and colors and hues, it was this humanizing moment. This may have been their tank. They were standing up for something, and for a moment, they were standing up for themselves. And the questions continued. And each and every time a kid stood on that line in that moment, in that glorious moment, I got to see what courage was. I got to see what resiliency was. And I got to see kids think that this may be my story now, but the story doesn't define me. Someday the story is going to change. Most of the questions I asked were very generic. Someone. And then I made a horrific mistake. I went specific. I used the word you. Stand in line if you have ever been homeless. And out darted this beautiful girl, Sue Ellen. And she got that line first because each and every time it was like prime time real estate. How do I get to that line and not have to push somebody away? And she got that line and she stood there. And then she realized in that moment, I'm all alone. Where is everyone? And in that second, I saw her look at her feet and hope that the floor would swallow her whole. Hope that she could just disappear. Hope that she could just be invisible like she had been her entire life. And as she looked at her feet, she told me later, she thought, hurry. Ask another question. I just want to go back to that wall. I just want to go back to being invisible. I don't want to see them because if I see them, then they're going to see me. And if they see me, they're going to see my story. And if they see my story, they're going to know that I'm that girl at the age of 14 that doesn't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. They're going to know that I'm that girl that doesn't know what I'm going to eat tonight. They're going to know that I'm that girl that sits in class every day fidgeting because I haven't had a bath in weeks. I don't have clean clothes. No one's going to ask me to some dance or to some game. And in that moment, suddenly out of nowhere, as that movie in her mind played, The kind of movie that you can't pause. The kind of movie you can't stop or eject like the kind you do on a DVD player. But a movie nonetheless. As that movie was playing, suddenly out of nowhere, out steps Tiffany with these beautiful bouncing braids. You see, when I asked that question, Tiffany took a deep breath and she stepped backwards, closer and closer to the wall. And then as she watched Sue Ellen stand on that line all by herself, she realized that's my story. So unlike Sue Ellen, who stood on that line looking at her feet, hoping that I could move on, Tiffany took a step closer and a step closer. And as she did so, she looked at each and every one of us in the eye. And it was like a sucker punch. She wanted us to see her because she wanted us to see her story. Because seeing her story knew that we would see her. And in fact, we had. We had seen her every single day. At the age of 14, this little girl stood in the corner of the busiest street in Long Beach, Pacific Coast Highway. She got there at 4 o'clock and she picked up that cardboard box. And she'd taken a marker from her art class and wrote in big, bold letters, "We'll work for food." And at 14 years old, she stood there with a little tin cup, hoping that someone would actually see her and realize she's hungry. So maybe they'd give her a half-eaten burger from McDonald's. Maybe they would see that little tin cup and throw a couple coins in that cup, and maybe she'd have enough coins at the end of the day to give her dad that tin cup and they could get that Fleabag motel. Maybe tonight's the night that we can sleep under a roof in that Fleabag motel, all 6 of us in one bed, head to toe. Maybe tonight I can have a shower. Maybe tonight I won't be so scared. So she stood there, wanting and wishing, and watched people grab their pearls, clutch their purse, cross the street, look away. Hour after hour. And when she had enough coins in that cup, she would give it to her daddy, hopeful. Maybe tonight, Daddy. And yet her daddy would take those coins and he'd smoke it in a crack pipe. So at the age of 14, every night, that little girl was out on that cold concrete. And at the age of 14, as she stood on that line, she wanted us to know that this is my story now, but this story is not going to define me. My story is going to change. I'm going to write a different ending to a different story. And as she stood in front of that tank, at that moment, saying so much by not saying anything at all, suddenly out came Narada, this beautiful boy who just wanted to fit in, just wanted to play hoops with the boys, just wanted to be like every other teenager. He asked for those games. He asked for those shoes. He asked for those jeans. And that hard-working mom got each and every one of those things. And they found themselves in hard times, and they found themselves homeless. And as he too stood against the wall and watched Sue Ellen, and then he watched Tiffany, he thought, this is my story too. And that line became a gravitational pull, and he joined them. 3 strangers who became a family, each with a different story, each hoping, daring, believing that things can get better. As we continue to play the game, the questions got more painful, more difficult. Questions about bullying, questions about alcoholism, questions about drugs, questions about burying friends and loved ones, questions about losing your innocence. And what I wanted each and every one of my students to do was to use my room, use that classroom to become a safe space, to heal, to become whole, to write that different ending to that different story. So I wanted my students for the first time to believe that they could change. And to do so, we were going to have this toast. So I went out and I got plastic champagne glasses. I got sparkling apple cider. I stole a cue from a friend of mine who was a kindergarten teacher because I just think kindergarten teachers are much more fun. And if you walk into a kindergarten classroom, their bulletin board is always going to be much sexier than mine. They have better handwriting, they have better murals. So I thought, we're taking it back, old school, back in the day, back when they had things like show and tell. Because most of my kids missed out on that show and tell. Maybe they didn't have a lot to show. Or maybe that proud mama told them, don't you dare tell. So let's go back in the day. So I made some signs. I blew up some balloons. I lined up those plastic champagne glasses. And I had books. Books written by and for and about kids. Kids who had lived in real wars. And they reached for that pen and they told a story. Whether it was a little girl in a tiny little attic who looked out her window and watched her friends being led off like sheep to slaughter. But every day, that little girl, Anne Frank, picked up that pen and left a legacy. Or whether it was someone who was crammed into a cattle car, rode into Auschwitz-Birkenau, watched his entire family perish in a chimney. He too picked up that pen. He too left a legacy. Or a little girl in the streets of Bosnia-Herzegovina in the middle of a genocide, in a basement. She too picked up a pen, and she too wrote a story. I didn't realize after we played that line game that each and every one of my students would go back and pick up this marble journal and be real, to live their authentic self. Because when I had passed out that marble journal, the first assignment came back, and a young girl had written in that journal. She was very upset. She had a black eye, she had an ankle monitor, she had an attitude, and a rap sheet. She wasn't ready to tell me her story. She wasn't ready to stand on a line, and she wanted me to know that. So in that first assignment, this is what she wrote. I hate Aaron Gruwell. I hate Aaron Gruwell. She wrote twice, just in case I didn't get the first time. And if I wasn't on probation, I would probably shank her. Exclamation point. So I didn't want my students to play the line game and go back and fantasize how to shank me. And it was a word I didn't even know. I had to look it up in Urban Dictionary. I now know it's not good. But this young boy, Narado, went back to that shelter. He picked up a pen and he wrote. And in doing so, he was able to right a wrong. In doing so, he was able to leave his mark. In doing so, he was able to dare to dream, just like MLK has asked each and every one of us to do. Never knowing that those words would make its way into a book, Diary 24, that they would make their way onto a screen. So I wanted to show you how those words came to life. When our story was asked to be made into a film, it was a scary proposition. My students wanted to tell a real story, not make it cheesy like some after-school special. They didn't want to hire Justin Bieber or Miley Cyrus. We're all kind of sick of the tongue. We wanted real kids. So we interviewed 10,000 kids from this community. That kid that lived in that shelter. That kid that just got out of juvie. That kid who was living in a car. This kid who was homeless. So the young boy who's going to read Narada's journal, you're never going to see him in High School Musical 1, 2, or 3. He's not going to break out in song and dance in any Hollywood show. He's not an actor. He doesn't have washboard abs. And what this young boy is reading wasn't written by some tycoon in the Hollywood Hills. It was written by a kid, a young African-American student who said, this is my story. The young boy who plays him is Latino. He is homeless, Narada is homeless, and yet in that moment, their story is the same. So for a brief moment, I want to take you into my classroom, into room 203. And when my students got the courage to say, I'm going to pick up a plastic champagne glass filled with sparkling apple cider and dare to dream and make a toast to change. So if you could turn your attention to the screen, welcome to the Freedom Riders.
Okay, guys, gals, listen up. This is what I want you to do. I want each of you to step forward and take one of these Borders bags, which contain the 4 books we're going to read this semester. All right. They're very special books, and they each remind me in some way of each of you. But before you take the books, I want you to take one of these glasses of sparkling cider, and I want each of you to make a toast. We're each gonna make a toast for change. And what that means is, from this moment on, every voice that told you you can't is silenced. Every reason that tells you things will never change disappears. And the person you were before this moment, that person's turn is over. Now it's your turn. Okay? Okay. You ready to get this party going on? What? What's the deal here?
Man, I have a boyfriend since I was like 11, you know?
I believe it.
Okay, well, I was always the person that was going to get pregnant before I turned 16 and drop out. Like my mom. Ain't gonna happen.
Nobody ever listens to a teenager. No, everybody thinks you should be happy just because you're young. They don't see the wars that we fight every single day. And one day my war will end. And I will not die. And I will not tolerate abuse from anyone. I am strong.
My mom's kicked me out when I got jumped into the gang life. But I like her to see me graduate. I like to be 18.
Miss G, can I read something from my diary?
That'd be great.
Who is he?
Man, he's been with us since freshman year, fool.
What's his name?
I don't know.
The summer was the worst summer in my short 14 years of life. It all started with a phone call. My mother was crying and begging, asking for more time, as if she were gasping for her last breath of air. She held me as tight as she could and cried. Her tears hit my shirt like bullets and told me we were being evicted. She kept apologizing to me. I thought I have no home. I should have asked for something less expensive at Christmas. On the morning of the eviction, a hard knock on the door woke me up. The sheriff was there to do his job. I looked up at the sky, waiting for something to happen. My mother has no family to lean on, no money coming in. Why bother coming to school or getting good grades if I'm homeless? The bus stops in front of the school. I feel like throwing up. I'm wearing clothes from last year, some old shoes and no new haircut. I kept thinking I'd get laughed at. Instead, I'm greeted by a couple of friends who were in my English class last year. And it hits me, Mrs. Gerwell, my crazy English teacher from last year, is the only person that made me think of hope. Talking with friends about last year's English and our trips, I began to feel better. I received my schedule and the first teacher is Mrs. Gerwan, room 203. I walk into the room and feel as though all the problems in life are not so important anymore. I am home.
The Imam talked about the power of words. And when I think about it, a young boy at the age of 14 with a pen in hand and a journal, for a young boy at the age of 14 to use the word hope, when so many others would have written him off like he was hopeless. And for a young boy who was homeless to use the word home. It allowed him to dream that there were better days coming. So I stand before you still, that ordinary teacher who had extraordinary kids. They wanted to be the first. They wanted to be the first to graduate from high school. They wanted to be the first to pursue higher education. They wanted to bring each and every book they had ever read to life. So imagine what it was like when I got to see those 150 students, the first in their family, walk across that stage and get their high school diploma. The hooting and the hollering and the tears. And that was just the beginning. And then they had to go somewhere. They had to use those wings to fly. So for the majority of my students, the first place they went was Long Beach City College. And Big Daddy. He became their father. I was Mama G. He became Big Daddy. And together we were their shepherds to kind of whisk them into higher education. What does it mean? How do you do this? And then we had this crazy scheme that all of those stories we read about that little girl in that attic or those railroad tracks leading to Auschwitz-Birkenau, or that basement in Bosnia-Herzegovina? Could we bring them to life? And so suddenly I had to call Big Daddy and say, you got a chaperone, because we're taking our show on the road. And we got on a plane. We followed our trusty compass. And we walked on those railroad tracks leading into Auschwitz-Birkenau under a sign, Arbach macht frei, work will make you free. And saw those crematoriums, saw those gas chambers. And yet we saw a rainbow. We saw a rainbow. We walked up those steps leading into Anne Frank's attic. And although she was captured all those years ago, we walked up those steps on August 4th, the same day that she'd been captured, because her words were not lost. And then we found ourselves in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in this war-torn country in the middle of a genocide. And the power of Snoop Dogg, we put on that album, and every single kid who spoke Serbo-Croatian, they knew every single lyric to every single line. It unified us. I think every single person thought that Dr. Dre at any moment was going to come and give us all a record contract and put us on MTV. Believe it or not, there was a day when MTV actually showed music videos. And then Robert and I came back like proud parents, and we realized they're going to keep going. And they have. They transferred. They got bachelor's degrees. They got master's degrees. Some of them are working on their PhDs. And those same kids that stood on that line, Sue Ellen and Narada and Tiffany, I see them every single day. Every single day. And they are dreaming. And they are giving a voice to the voiceless. And just like Narada wrote, hope. Hope to the hopeless. So when you think about the dreams that MLK had on this special moment at this special time, it starts with us. It starts with the individual. It starts with the person who says, I'm going to stand up to something, to someone. And that someone should be yourself. Having the courage and the tenacity to change, to dream, to give and to give and to give. So we are here celebrating a legacy, but each and every one of you can be that legacy. Each and every one of you can use your voice to shatter glass, to shatter stereotypes, to be heard, to be seen, and to matter. So I am honored that my Big Daddy asked me to come and be a part of this moment. You can't get rid of me now. We are a family. We are connected. And like the pastor said about being pregnant, I actually felt pregnant this morning, so I put on some Spanx, and then he reminded me. But I want to be pregnant, because Spanx can't hold in purpose. Spanx can't hold in that indoctrination. So he's going to send us out in the world pregnant. Pregnant with our purpose and our passion. And Spanx be damned. So thank you.
Please show her some GCC. Get up on your feet. Put your hands together for this phenomenal soldier of civil rights. Aaron, I can't tell you.
Love you. Can't even look.
That's why you notice I didn't introduce her, because I'd been in tears. Okay, we have been together almost 20 years, and first of all, she looks amazing. She looks the same as she did when I first met her. When I first met her, I went into a class, and we were trying to figure out where we're going to get the kids to go to school and all that. She was thundering away at the chalkboard, being teacher extraordinaire, and just looking out for all these students. And she has been the same way. Every time she calls me or we talk, I've got an idea. When she has an idea, best believe it's going to be done. And she is still doing this with the same amount of energy, same amount of enthusiasm, and most importantly, with the same amount of passion. I have not seen someone so passionate as you in a long time. And it's an honor to not only be a colleague, a friend, and just part of our family. And we want to give you a little something with your own book in it. I didn't know we were going to put that in there. It's just a token of the GCC family. Now you're definitely part of our family forever. And I just want to thank you. We hopefully we will do some other things and come back if you like.
Pinky swear.
Pinky promise.
Okay,
you got it. That's a deal. That's a deal. We love you. Thank you so much, man. I'm going to try to wrap this up. I know we got a couple things that we need to do. I got some housekeeping that I got to take care of. But I want to wrap it up so we get a little time if you guys want to take pictures. I think we got books on sale at the front if you want to get a book. And if you want to get it signed, if Erin's got enough time. I know she's got to be somewhere else, so I don't want to, I don't want to take up enough time. There was a portion in the program that was a special tribute, but I kind of put that down a little bit back in the program, and it won't take long if you guys help me out and bear with me a little bit. I'd really want to say Dr. King, albeit, and when I was younger, I'm going to be real, I'm going to tell you the truth. When I was younger, I really didn't understand the civil rights movement. And on some levels, I was a little ashamed because I went to predominantly white schools, and it was a little embarrassing when you're only a black kid in the class and you had to see the I have a dream speech over and over and over again. And they used to call me some bad words. And I used to raise my hand every time they said that because that's the only guy, I was the only one there. But I am thankful now that I had that opportunity, and I understand as I'm older, even though Dr. King was black, he does not belong to us. He belongs to the world. He belongs to everybody. And I used to say, I wish Dr. King wasn't black. Maybe he would get the respect that he's supposed to. It's very difficult when you are on the forefront and a pioneer and you take a risk. Somebody said to me, this breakfast is too early at 7:30. It is early. I was here at 5:30. I couldn't sleep. That's just me. Okay. I normally don't sleep that much. But I started thinking about that and I said, boy, we're comfort. We're in comfort. We're in convenience. And I said, do you know how old Dr. King was when he died? When he was assassinated? He was 39 years old. He looks a lot older than 39 years old in some of his pictures. I'm 49. I got 10 years that I have bonus in comparison to Dr. King. So I told this person nicely, I know you might have to get up a little bit early, but I'm not asking you to take a bullet for a cause. Never got to see his grandchildren. He never got a really opportunity to see his children because of the love that he had for all of us. Civil rights, not civil wrongs, is a very difficult process. Hate is easy. That's the default mechanism. That's our default setting. I caught myself the other day. Somebody cut me off. I'm only going home. And I'm ready to cuss, fight, whatever. I said, what? You're only going home. You really had to get that upset about that? So I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. I'm trying. Okay? And all I can ask for everybody else, if they can try, catch yourself and ask yourself, can you learn to love just a little bit more? And the special tribute was, I'm very, very honored that we have, in my opinion, a soldier for civil rights. And not only is this a tribute, it's an apology as well. Because I really didn't understand what it meant to be the first. I don't understand. I can see, I can read, I can think about Jackie Robinson and what he went through, the name calling, and yet still be excellent at what you do. Excellent. When you had to go through all that he went through. Now, I don't know what you are, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, whatever the case may be. The first black president in the United States, I can only imagine. I look at his hair, I look at his eyes. Dang, I couldn't do it. But when I see that, I understand what it is like now as I'm older and appreciate it when you're the first. When you're the person that sets the standard for something. And you have to be the best. The most difficult thing in the world is to understand that as a child. Because we take things for granted. Young folks, young students, we take this for granted. Adult students adult folks, black folk, white folk, brown folk, we take that for granted. And we need to acknowledge there have been people that have opened the doors at the many colors that we have in here today, that we can be in fellowship, that we can worship across faiths, that we can disagree with a purpose. I grew up in a home like that. I grew up with a person that was a soldier for civil rights. I didn't understand it. 1962, Orange County, California. It's probably one of the whitest places in America at that time, okay? But this person was the first African-American teacher in Orange County. Not only that, probably in close comparison to Miss G and Aaron, and I think we're only 1 degree of separation from each other anyway, is ironic. I don't seek fame. I don't seek fortune. I don't seek a lot of things. And a lot of people ask me, why do I do this? Why are we connected? There's a reason. There's a purpose, because this is my personal ministry. This is what I do. The person in my household told me, don't ever be an educator. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't be a teacher. You'll be broke. You'll be miserable, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, that's all true. I'm not miserable, but more times than not, I've been broke. That's okay. But I may have not had my pockets filled with money, but my spirit, my soul is rich. Okay? Like Prince, I ain't got a lot of money, but I got a hell of a lot of personality. Okay, I ain't got no money, but I got a lot of personality. The reason why I have that is because it's an extraordinary person. Like I said, it's so ironic to have Erin here, because I feel that she reminds me of this person so much. And I really wanted the opportunity. I had a pastor a long time ago, ironically, Pastor Hill. She'll know who that is. He always said in his sermons, you give people their flowers while they're living. But don't give me no flowers when I'm dead. Don't have no, if you want to give me a flower, give me a phone call. Or give me some flowers while I'm living. I don't want them when I'm dead. Can't see it. Okay? So I never really had the right opportunity, 1, to say thank you. Number 2, to apologize for being just a jerk as a kid. Not understanding the struggle of what you had to go through as the first black teacher in Orange County. And not really understanding my role as a son, that I needed to do more. I was asked to do more. Now, here's the reality. I can't even remotely do the things you have done. But I will promise, and I will never finish it, because the work is always ongoing. But just like Aaron, when you were thundering away that classroom the first time, I have never, ever seen a better teacher in my life than the person that I'm trying to tribute. She used to thunder away on her off hours. Many times we would be put out because she's teaching kids how to read, bilingual, the whole 9. That's how I learned to do this, to bring these people together, because I'm continuing what I was taught in my own home, and we got so much more to do. And I don't really care whether I become rich or not, but I do care that everywhere we go, we will continue to work together. We will continue to change the world. We will not let hate be victorious. The only reason why hate succeeds is love sits on the sidelines. If we can recruit for hate, we sure as hell can recruit for love. I learned this. I learned my faith. I learned to become educated, one way or another. She's a little bit old school. But the tribute, we won't talk about that, okay? But I want to say I'm thankful. I appreciate you. And that person, if you can get up off your feet one more time, give a hand, put your hands together, give a round of applause for Barbara Ann Hill. That is actually Mama Hill. And I want to say thank you, Mom, for being that first black teacher in Orange County and standing up for civil rights, because we have so much to do. thank you, everybody, for that applause. That just meant so much to me. And when we talk about civil rights, I've never really had the opportunity to do that, but I want to say thank you, Mom. I appreciate it. And I love you. Okay. All right, also, as we're closing, I want to have a special thanks for the people that helped out. Obviously, where's Robert Williams? Come on. And I need Oscar. Oscar, where's Oscar Flores at? Come on, get up here. Robert is the coordinator for Black Scholars. This is a new program. I think the first time in so many years we have the funding and the opportunity to do the things, maybe such as bringing the Freedom Riders out, doing some curriculum designs, programs. He is heading the Black Scholar program, and I can't tell you, he's doing this 20 hours a week as a part-time counselor. So I've failed that we don't provide more opportunities for him to be full-time, because he's doing full-time work for 20 hours a week. Just saying. I ain't trying to be political. Just saying. Okay.
I appreciate the
okay. I'm just saying. Also, Oscar Flores is basically the coordinator of La Comunidad.
Carolina.
Yeah, we're Carolina. Yeah, where's she at? Yeah, come on. Yeah. Teresa Davis, you can come up too. I knew you. Yep. Come on, Teresa. We actually have 4 equity programs: La Comunidad, Black Scholars, the foster care Guardians. Okay, Guardian Scholars. 3. I'm sorry, three equity programs. These Teresa Davis heads the whole program. She's coordinated the entire equity program. Carolina, last name, Yunazian. Yeah, I always mess that up. Yunazian. And Oscar Flores is. These are part of the coordinators for both programs. So they are doing a fantastic job. They are also 20 hours a week, and I hope they increase at some point in time. So that's just a little plug. That's a selfish plug, but we have to do more, and we will. We have good support to do that. I also want to recognize Vice President Dr. Rick Perez. We have been we have known each other for about 20 years, the same amount of time. Yes, I do. I didn't know if you were going to be able to hear me. So, but I do want to give a shout out to him too, because he allows me to be as crazy as I need to be to land students like the Freedom Riders. He did that 20 years ago. He's allowing me the freedom to do that today, and he's been a phenomenal mentor and a phenomenal role model. So I really appreciate what you do for everybody. Okay. Y'all can sit down now. Robert, you can stay up here though. Okay.
Yes, Big Daddy.
Get a little closer. That's exactly what I want to hear from now on. I also want to obviously thank our wonderful keynote speaker, Erin Gruwell. And I know we don't have the Freedom Riders here today, but I'm pretty sure, knowing her, we will bring them on a later date. So, I thank you and I love you. Every time I hear you, it just brings back 20 years. That's 20 years ago that we went to Bosnia and Europe. It's phenomenal, and I want to continue to work with you. Anything you need. My main man, Dr. David Vire. To start us off today, once again, a phenomenal leader. It's such a joy to work at a college that you have support, and he has vision, and I emulate a lot of the things you do. I think you're just a wonderful leader, and I have tremendous amount of respect for you. We will come through for you. Absolutely. Okay, I gotta give some love to the Dream Team. They were phenomenal. I'm probably going to kill their names. They're going to kill me. But let me say, the folks in student outreach and a little cross between the student affairs and student activities. These people were phenomenal, because I was working on this program pretty much when everybody was gone. So a lot of stuff I didn't know about. This is my first time, doing a program like this. Both Solaire, Yokai, Yep. Oh, God. Okay. Okay. Well, Solaire. And she's right over here.
Thank you, Solaire.
Okay. She really saved the day. She really did. And then Meg, I'm just going to say Meg. Is Meg still here? There she goes. Meg, they do a phenomenal job in outreach, not just with this program. So I had to kind of recruit them to help me along, because it's one thing to have the vision, but they really put in the details, so I appreciate that. Yeah. Also want to say thank you to Mark Drescher, Armando Sanchez, Carlos Kleeman, and Jason Dorff from IT, getting everything set up as well. I want to say thank you to Ida. Is Ida still here? All the flowers, the centerpieces, those were all done by Ida, and she took care of that for me. I'm very appreciative. Thank you. Also, Wendy Grove and Ann Simon for the program and Office of Marketing and Communication. The facility teams, and if I've left anybody out, I also want to give a shout out to my assistant teammate. I call her Goose. She don't like that, but that's okay. You have to go by my office to see that. I want to say thank you to Irina, because she always is on time, right on time. So I want to thank everybody for coming out and participating. You know, this is the first one, so we have a lot of work to do. Like Robert said, I hope 10 people show up. You don't know how many. I was praying to every faith that people will show up. So thank you for my spiritual and faithful brothers for coming today. It was so important to have you guys though. We do want to give you some baskets for all the different centers that came. And I'm going to have one of our brothers close us in a minute, but we do want to give you a little token of our appreciation.
By the way, I saw this once a vaquero, always a vaquero. So I've already had this. My son played basketball here for a season in 2002 until he injured his knee. So once a vaquero.
You're absolutely right. And thank you, brothers, from coming from the different mosques you've come from, the Burbank, I'm messing this up, San Gabriel Valley community, Muslim community. And I'll have you come up in just one second. I would love for Abdullah Jabbar, Iman, to come by and say a closing prayer. And he represents the Muslim community of San Fernando Valley.
Brothers and sisters, if we can raise our hands in prayer and look deep in our hearts. Dear God, I thank you, and I thank you on behalf of every brother and sister sitting here for giving us all the ability to come out early morning to meet our long-lost brothers and sisters and to meet family that we didn't know before. And dear God, we thank you for joining our hearts in this noble cause. And we ask you to take us from strength to strength, and let not this be the first nor the last. And dear God, oh, the ever-living, everlasting, we ask you to give us the ability to see good as good and the ability to hold firmly onto it. And give us the ability to see falsehood as falsehood and as evil, and the ability to abstain from it. And we ask you to join our hearts on all that is good. And we ask you to increase us in our love. And we ask you to bless the brothers and sisters who put this beautiful event together and take them from strength to strength. And we ask you to bless all of us, our families, and this beautiful country in leading the world. And we ask you to bless all those who in the past have made effort for freedom. And we ask you to give us the ability to live in their footsteps and to live and die in making effort and striving. And as the brother said, to make that jihad, that effort, and strive for equality and love and justice for all. Amen.
Amen.
that, I can't say that any better. So that pretty much concludes our event. Thank you so much for coming out. Strive to be inconvenient. Don't sit in comfort. We got a lot of work to do. Let's go out and get it done. God bless you. Yeah.